A pleasure that you could be a part of this afternoon's bulletin. It's streaming live on Facebook. Our handles 3FM 927. Same handles on Twitter as well, 3FM 927. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta. We'll get into politics shortly because, as you know it, Alan Tremantin has become the first to meet the vetting committee. Kojopoku is meeting the vetting committee now. We'll connect with my colleague Noble Crosby-Allen shortly for a lot more details as to exactly what's transpiring there. But let's take you to the courts now, because the Court of Appeal has overturned a decision by the Accra High Court to hear afresh the trial of former Cocoa Board CEO Dr. Stephen Kwabnopuni and businessman Seydou Agongo. In a unanimous decision today, a three-member panel of the court held that the trial High Court misdirected itself when it decided not to adopt the previous proceedings of the 5-year trial when a new judge took over the case. It directed for the proceedings and evidence led under the previous judge, Justice Clements Onyenuga, be adopted. Justice Kwesi Anochijima, who took over the case in March 2023, ruled that the trial be restarted for being tainted with allegations of unfairness. He said a fresh trial was an avenue for the court to substantially dispel the said suspicions and regain the defendant and public trust in the process. However, the Attorney General filed an appeal challenging the decision of the High Court, arguing it was against the tenets of fair trial. And the Attorney General, Godfred Yeboah-Dame, he addressed the media after the court's hearing today.
Well, I think the position is quite clear that the High Court was wrong in taking into account what the court described as relevant factors, having to determination that the trial is started with. So the court has given a ruling which bind on the High Court for the proceedings to be adopted for us to move on to the trial.
So in this particular Opudi case, what we do know is that we are told usually when it comes to criminal trials, when such issues happen, the judge has to start afresh. Its court will take this position.
No, I mean that statement is wrong. There are many decisions of the High Court, the Supreme Court, and Court of Appeal actually directed adoption of proceedings in all matters. I mean, they refer the court to say already they have on record which will direct that the High Court, the criminal matters, is mandated to adopt evidence. And the decision that you appeal against is really made that point that yes, it's actually not unconventional for criminal proceedings to be adopted in a trial. And so it cannot be correct that when it comes to civil matters, there's provision for adoption of evidence, and in criminal matters, there is a provision. In the position, the true position of the law is that it is actually up to the trial judge to make that determination. The trial judge makes that determination based on factors that consider necessary. And if the parties are agreed by the sense of that discretion, the parties are entitled to what an appeal which we did. And we feel that the matters that were relied upon by the trial judge were with all respect to me quite relevant, and therefore the proper thing to do, which is the most progressive step in the circumstances, was for the evidence to be adopted and for us to move on. And I think that it is actually a little bit backward, with all respect, for a trial which has advanced to this stage for another to wait that we should start. It will amount to giving the evidence twice.
So that's the Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame, and it will be interesting what the accused, Dr. Stephen Opuni, and businessman Seydou Agongo will have to say in relation to the latest decision by the court. But a letter allegedly sent to Justice Kwesi Anochijima by the Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Gertrude Tokono, in June has directed him to vacate his position and move to the Ashanti region, and he is expected to start work from the Ashanti region from today. And so it will be interesting as well to get a bit more details as to the reasoning behind that decision. And he should be replaced by Justice Abuaji Tando of the Winneba High Court in that particular case, and Justice Tando becomes the third judge on the case after the first judge, Justice Clements Onyenuga, retired and handed over to the now transferred Justice Jima. And we'll continue to follow this. I'll bring you a lot more details details on it. The former Cocoa Board CEO, meanwhile, Dr. Stephen Opunu and Sedi Agongo are standing trial for causing financial loss to the state, and it's a case that has spanned the last 5 years. 5 years and ongoing, and still, as it's mostly said, more often than not, the wheels of justice grinding slowly and really slowly. But away from this, let's do education now, because the Deputy Minister for Education in charge of TVET, Gifty Chuman-Pofu, has blamed the struggling economy of the country on teachers due to low gross tertiary enrollment. She makes the case that should the country be able to increase that enrollment to about 40% by 2030 to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, then Ghana will begin to see the tide change for it in terms of an economic outlook. The Deputy Education Minister made the statement while addressing the 75th anniversary of the Kropon Presbyterian College in the Eastern region.
Research has proved that any country's gross tertiary enrollment ratio has so much to do with the GDP. And with that increase, the GDP of the country will increase. And for that simple reason, if the economy do not do well, it is not the economy, it is the teacher. Because the performance of the economy depends on the country's gross tertiary enrollment ratio. Countries who have theirs 40% and above, their GDP is fantastic. And those of us who have it lower, the economy is struggling. From last year to this academic year, we have improved our gross tertiary enrollment ratio from 18.8% to 20%. And we're hopeful that by 2030, which is just a few years away, we should hit 40%. And by the time we get to 40%, the GDP of the country, per global research that we have, going to do wonderfully well.
That's the Deputy Education Minister, also for Senior Minister, and Yaosafo Mafu. He assured that no student allowances will be affected by the country's IMF bailout.
I know that the difficulty in the economic landscape, which has resulted in government signing up for a program with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, may cause you some concern. But none of the allowances, including the teaching profession, will be affected by our program with the IMF. If there are any difficulty in prompt payment, the difficulty is coming from our own mobilization of resources and not from the IMF.
Senior Minister and Presidential Advisor, or former Senior Minister, I should say, Yaosafo Mafu. And let's take you to the northern region, the Savannah region, rather, to be specific. And fires gutted 2 boys' dormitory blocks at the Salagatia Medea Senior High School in the East Gonja municipality. There, 2 of the students who were still in the dormitory preparing to join the assembly sustained injuries, and the incident, according to reports, happened Monday at about 7 in the morning. My colleague Christopher Marco has the details and joins us on the telephone line with a bit more. Chris, what more do we know about this fire incident?
Yes, so Mawuena, the students are beginning to count their losses after this morning's fire incident. And according to the personnel from the Ghana National Fire Service, they suspect some electrical faults might have triggered the fire. So as we speak, the students whose properties were damaged are in the dormitory trying to put their things in order.
And do we know what could have caused the fire?
Yes, so the personnel from the Ghana National Fire Service are suspecting that it could be some electrical fault, even though that has not been confirmed yet to us. But that is their initial assessment and what they have to say about the cause of fire. Now, one thing is that this has affected academic work, because these students who have been affected from the 2 dormitories have not been to class, as they are in the dormitories trying to put the place in order.
And we mentioned that there were 2 students who were feared to have sustained some injuries. Is it the case that they are doing better now?
Yes, they are doing better because they were sent to the Salaga Government Hospital where they were checked and the wounds that they sustained dressed. So currently, as we speak, they are back to campus and also trying to figure out what they lost to the fire.
Christopher Marco, my colleague in the Savannah region, with those details. And let's return to the capital to one of our top stories this afternoon, which has to do with ongoing vetting of presidential hopefuls of the governing New Patriotic Party, because Alan Tremantin, now we understand, has ended his meeting with the vetting committee at the party's office at Koko Mlemle, and now energy expert Kojo Poko is currently meeting the vetting committee. Noble Crosby Annan is my colleague at the Kokomlemle office of the governing New Patriotic Party. He's joined us on the telephone line with a bit more details. Crosby, many thanks. Alan has concluded his vetting. Have we got a sense as to what transpired when he was in there?
Well, it was difficult getting Alan Tremantin to comment on what really transpired in the room where he was vetted by the committee, which is led by the former Speaker of Parliament, Aaron Michael Quaid. But in his engagements with the media, he mentioned that he's not new to the process at all. You remember that this is not the first time that Alan Tremantin wants to become flag bearer of the party. So he's gone through the process. He knows the rudiments, the ins and outs of processes like this. And he spent close to 3 hours at the party's election and campaign office at Kokomlemle. That is where the vetting process is ongoing. So that was the Alan Tremantin vetting. He entered the room about 9:30 a.m. and then he exited when it was close to 12. So that's how long the former trade minister...
Over 2 hours?
Yes, that's over 2 hours spent at the vetting room. So you do not know exactly what he was being asked, what he was being quizzed upon, the engagement interactions between the vetting committee and himself, but he spent well over 2 hours in the room. Now, at the moment, the energy expert, Kojo Nsapuapoku, who also made it as part of the 10 to submit their forms to leave the party, is being vetted at the moment. He entered almost immediately after Alan Tremantin exited the building. So his vetting is also ongoing. We'll get a sense from him of what the process was like for him. But before he entered the building, he was also very confident that he will be able to execute the mandate that the party he hopes will give to him on November 4, and he's confident that the vetting process will not be used to, if you like, shortlist the candidates, and he will not be made, as a reserve, as in not being part of the 5 if that should happen. So he's confident that all 10 aspirants who submitted their nomination forms will go through the vetting process, and then it will be the turn of the Special Delegates Congress to trim the number down to 5. And he was also confident that he will be part of the 5 that the Special Delegates Congress of the party be looking like. So that is what we know at the moment. Also, we're sensing that the Vice President, who is also wanting to become President of the country, he will be taking his turn shortly. He is yet to arrive, though. But at the moment, we're seeing some supporters of the Vice President wearing DMB, Good Boys, and at the back of what they're wearing is security. I don't know whether they are taking care of the Vice President's security. But we're also seeing some police and military personnel around, if you like, preparing the way for the arrival of the Vice President. We do not clearly know what time the Vice President will be arriving, but we know that the Vice President is the third person to be vetted today. So when the day is over today, the expectation for tomorrow also is for some 3 other party stalwarts of the party to be vetted. And on Tuesday, which is tomorrow, the former Energy Minister Mwache Jako, former General Secretary of the party from Nigeria, Japan, and Member of Parliament for Central Kennedy, Japan, when the stand will face the committee. Then on Thursday, Dr. Kofi Kunedu Afriku and Dr. Wusefri Akutunjo Gate, they will appear on Wednesday, July 5. Then Francis Adanimo will wrap it all up on Thursday, July 6. We know the party has inaugurated an 11-member committee to steer its presidential primary, and the vetting is led by the former Speaker of Parliament here on Microphone. Eric.
Right then, Noble Crosby Annan, my colleague, the NPP's Kokomlemle office, providing a detailed account as to exactly what it is that has been transpiring there. And we here at your election command center will be providing details for you as to exactly what happens at the party's head office as and when there's news for you. But amongst many things has been conversations surrounding the development from Asin North in relation to the presidential race of the governing New Patriotic Party and what transpired when Alan Tremanting took his turn to address the teaming supporters and he was interrupted by the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, and there's been conversations around it, and one of the presidential hopefuls, Kennedy Japan as well, has been speaking in relation to it as to how it breeds disunity amongst the party. We'll get to hear from him as he met delegates shortly, if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live on Facebook. Our handles 3FM 927 as well, as we continue to work around to bring to you details as it did transpire at that delegates meeting between Kennedy Japan and the delegates of the governing New Patriotic Party. But while we wait to do that, let's bring some other stories to you. And amongst many things, government through the electricity company of Ghana has this week to settle part of its debt owed the independent power producers to avert any planned shutdown of energy generation plant. It follows the agreement between ECG and the IPPs last Friday on a payment plan which avoided a shutdown of plants, saving the country from a potential energy crisis. Now, MD of ECG, Samuel Dubik Mahama, he's been explaining what it is that has gone into the agreement and what it is that has been seen as the averting of the planned shutdown by the independent power producers.
ECG is seeing some level of growth now. It's seeing some changes in the way it's doing it's performing its duties. And through all of this, we believe strongly we can close a certain gap. There is evidence of that, and that's what we shared with the chamber. Through that, I don't want to go further because of some disclosure issues. We shared certain numbers with them for certain periods moving forward. So in effect, we've ring-fenced up to June debt, and we are trying to, as part of the World Bank conversation was, we would have to stay current moving forward. So we've ring-fenced that up to June, and then now we are going to make sure that from July going forward, we stay current based on some form of a negotiation that we had with them concerning how power is going to be dispatched and how the energy and capacity conversations have gone. So we have a very good working formula. So that's the buy-in for us to be able to move forward now.
That's the managing director of ECG, Samuel Dubik Mahama. Well, former finance minister Seth Tekpe, he's also been providing a bit more as to the conundrum currently facing the country, and is questioned amongst many things why and how the finance ministry has failed to make payments to the IPPs.
When it comes to the IPPs and the state-owned enterprises that deal with energy, we found a solution to those arrears, and that was ESLA. In fact, part of the ESLA flows was to be used to resolve the problems of the IPPs. Because I'm not going to go into, who caused what and the rest, which we have been debating, but the arrears was there, right? We know today, and we started using it to, for example, tackle VRA debt, why VRA? Because during the Doomsday crisis, it was VRA, because of the lack of supply of gas from Nigeria, they had to buy, crude oil at expensive prices to generate the power. And all the IPPs produced, they were not paid. So ESLA was to resolve that. And I have to say that if you look at the ESLA revenue that is coming, flowing, 33 billion Ghana cedis to date, and another 33 billion, and I'm quoting from the ESLA report. The goal of using ESLA to resolve those arrears should have been achieved. Of course, when I say 33 billion and 66, we also had the contractors element, enhanced road levy and the rest. So those arrears were to have been, paid, whether who caused it or not. What did we do? We collateralized it, right? And today, the flows are not even enough to pay for the loan, collateralization is the loan that we took, right? And we have found ESLA as part of the domestic debt restructuring. So this is the point I'm making, that we should just remain faithful to the goals and ideals. And remember, ESLA was debated in Parliament extensively, and it would have taken 3 to 5 years, including the IPPs. So it's a problem that we brought onto ourselves, and I think that, the government brought it to itself, and I think it is important that, we reach an amicable, solution.
That's former Finance Minister Setekba. You're listening to the news here on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live on Facebook. Our handles 3FM 927. To the Ashanti region now, where rains have wreaked havoc in different parts of the Ashanti regional capital. William Evans Sinkum has been following that. Joins us on the telephone lines with a bit more details. Evans, talk to us. How devastating has it been?
Very grave one. If you go to Sewaba, number of livestock have been carried away by flood waters. We are also learning that one person also lost their life, but we are unable to ascertain the veracity of this because NADMO is unaware, and they are also unable to, those talking about that are also unable to give us the full identity of this particular person. So we are still trying to get through to this particular development and also confirm that to our listeners. But beyond Sewaba, if you go to a place like Gracefield at Tasmanso, I'm talking about the road in front of the Gracefield Chapel. Last night it was an eyesore. Flood waters submerged in the particular stretch, and it was an indication of the fact that there are a number of structures there sitting in waterways. So me, for instance, I wasn't surprised to see that kind of a situation there. Then back to Sewaba, a road linking Sewaba and then the Asokore Mampo Municipal Assembly, part of it is also gone off by flood water. So, cars moving on that particular stretch will have to meander their way through the narrow stretch to be able to access certain communities, no adjoining communities. So that is the situation in the Ashanti region. Now, we're also learning of other devastation where our reporters are currently and I'm sure by evening we should be able to provide full details of that.
Right then, William Evans Sinkum, my colleague in the Ashanti region, with those details there for us as to floods wreaking havoc in the regional capital. And there'll be a lot more details if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7 and also on 3news.com. But to other matters now, and there's been a total of 125 animal deaths in the Upper East region following the outbreak of the anthrax disease. Latest data from the veterinary service show that as of June 29, at least 12 districts in the region have recorded cases of animal death. Over the same period, over 120,000 vaccinations have been carried out in the district to prevent further spread of the disease and its accompanied death. Dr. Benjamin Sasu, he is in charge of risk communication at the Ghana Veterinary Services. He's joined us on the telephone line with a lot more details. 125 animal deaths. Can you confirm this, and whether or not this can be described as an improvement considering the worry which accompanied a lot of the outbreaks in the district?
Okay, great. So good afternoon to your listeners. Since the first update of anthrax in the first week of June, we decided to have full data of animals that would being suspected or being confirmed as anthrax, being died of anthrax in the whole of Upper East. So from there to now to 23rd, we have had 125 animals dying. Out of it, in various districts, out of it, we only have 6 districts which were confirmed to have had anthrax outbreak. So for us, looking at the data and looking at the number of animals that have been vaccinated as of now, the data look good for us, because the vaccination is telling us about 120,000 animals, which consist of pig,
Your call has been put on hold.
Unfortunately, it appears we do have a challenge in relation to exactly what it is that is the situation with animals and livestock production as a result of the anthrax disease in the Upper East region. We're working the telephone lines again to get a bit more details as to exactly what it is that is transpiring, and most importantly, get to know if this can be described as a marked improvement considering the concern which was raised. Dr. Benjamin Kisi Sasu is in charge of risk communication at the Ghana Veterinary Service, and our top stories for you this afternoon, amongst many things, we've heard from Alan Chamantin, who's become the first of three to meet the vetting committee of the governing New Patriotic Party, which is chaired by the former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Mike Okwe. And then we've taken you to the court, where the Court of Appeal has overturned the High Court's decision to hear afresh trial of former Cocoa Board Chief Executive Dr. Kwabena Opuni and businessman Seydou Agongo. And on education still, though, there's been blames to teachers over the worsening economic situation as a result of teachers failing to properly and adequately prepare students for tertiary education. Meanwhile, Christopher Marco has been providing details about how fire gutted two boys' dormitory blocks at the Salaga T.I. Amadea Senior High School in the East Gonja municipality. But before we go, unfortunately, we're unable to raise Dr. Sasu on the telephone lines again to get a bit more details as to the country's anthrax situation. We'll leave you with a bit more news as to the country's agriculture space and what is happening in the cocoa sector, amongst many things, because amongst many things, the Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture in charge of crops, Frimpong Ado, wants the government to review its policies on cocoa farming in the country, as some cocoa farmers continue to sell their farmlands to illegal miners. He's been speaking to 3FM.
Cocoa farmers' incomes are low in this country. And the cocoa farmers' incomes are low. The causes are many. As and when the world cocoa market price goes up, the cocoa farmers also benefit. Unfortunately, since 2015 coming, the cocoa prices have been tumbling, and to the extent that until recently, we were buying a ton of cocoa at $2,200 per ton. When 2014, 2015, we were buying it over $3,000. And the cost of every input now is gone up, very critical. It has come up for serious discussion, and we are going to ensure that those we can convince, because it's education that we need to give to the cocoa farmers, because just as I said, the land doesn't belong to the states, so you can legislate.
That's Frimpong Ado's Deputy Agric Minister. That's how we end this afternoon's edition of the news here on 3FM 92.7. As always, a lot more news if you log on to 3news.com. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta, and Anekia Mensa Brampa is next with the very latest from the world of business.
A very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us on Business Daily this afternoon. Former Finance Minister Setekwe says government's decision to collateralize proceeds of the energy sector levy is to blame for debts owed independent power producers, the IPPs. Also, government misses its T-bills targets by 17%, raising over 2.3 billion cedis. We have all the details in the next 10 minutes. Please stay. Thank you for staying with us. Let's get to the details now. As former Finance Minister Setekwe has criticized government for its decision to collateralize proceeds from the Energy Sector Levy Act, ESLA. According to him, the domestic revenue source was introduced to provide funding for power generation and the clearance of legacy debt accumulated within the sector, including those of the independent power producers. Speaking at the sidelines of the second KB Mr. Arthur Forum organized in Accra, Mr. Tekbe said the goal of introducing ESLA has not been achieved.
If you look at the ESLA revenue that is coming, flowing, 33 billion Ghana cedis to date, and another 33 billion, and I'm quoting from the ESLA report. The goal of using ESLA to resolve those arrears should have been achieved. Of course, when I say 33 billion and 66, we also had the contractors element, enhanced road levy and the rest. So those arrears were to have been, paid, whether who caused it or not. What did we do? We collateralized it, right? And today, the flows are not even enough to pay for the loan. Collateralization is the loan that we took, right? And we have found ESLA as part of the domestic debt restructuring. So this is the point I'm making, that we should just remain faithful to the goals and ideals. And remember, ESLA was debated in Parliament extensively, and it would have taken 3 to 5 years, including the IPPs. So it's a problem that government brought itself, and I think it is important that we reach an amicable solution to this one.
That was former Finance Minister Setekwe there. A former Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, Alexander Mould, has also expressed concerns about government's partnership deal with Torrentco for the purpose of leasing the Tema Oil Refinery. He noted the partnership helps to revamp and be able to facilitate the continuous functioning of the refinery to ensure profitability. Alex Mould was worried the current Torrentco deal will extract rather than reviving the refinery. The former GNPC CEO was of the view money needed to revamp Tor would have to come from equity holders and not the leasing company.
Process audit was done in 2016 by engineers who came up and told us exactly what needed to be done in Tema Oil Refinery so that our processes and our instrumentation and our tank farm and all the piping and our gantry would operate in a continuous basis. We have not spent that money. It's going to take us $300 to $500 million to get Tema Oil Refinery in a position where it will make the refinery make profits. Now, looking at this deal, I just saw $22 million they wanted to spend. Where did they get that number from? That's why I say the due diligence has not been done. This transaction is just an extraction transaction to extract some value, bring in crude oil at high prices, and make losses at Tema Oil Refinery without Tema Oil Refinery getting better. We want a partner that is going to make Tema Oil Refinery better. That is going to make our refinery be able to work continuously.
And that was former GNPC CEO Alex Mould. Now, economist and director at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Peter Korte, expects that economic or macroeconomic challenges facing the Ghanaian economy will be addressed during the mid-year budget review, which is slated for the 27th of July this year. According to him, there should be policies to tackle the cedi depreciation, inflation and other challenges while protecting businesses and growing the economy.
Exchange rate has been fairly stable, but we expect some new policies or new measures to ensure its stability is strengthened. Inflation is still high, although it's been tapering down slightly. Inflation is still high, so I expect to see measures to curb inflation without necessarily hurting the business sector. It shouldn't be interest rate hikes all the time, but other real activities or policies that will strengthen the real sector so that growth would be enhanced within the real sector, and that would help reduce the rise in inflation.
Economist and director of ISE, Professor Peter Korte there. Let's look at one of our headline stories as government missed its treasury bills target by 17%, raising over 2.3 billion cedis during last Friday's auction. The target for the auction was 2.91 billion cedis, which includes a sale buyback of about 1.014 billion cedis, which matures and will be rolled over on July 6. All bids tendered for the 91 and 182-day were accepted by government. The 91-day Treasury bill also attracted an interest rate of 23%, while the 182-day Treasury bill also accepted a bid of 25%. Still on energy, away from energy actually, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers COPEC has predicted a marginal increment in fuel prices in this pricing window of the month, which is the first pricing window for the month of July. Per COPEC, petrol prices is expected to see an increase of 2.6%, while diesel is expected to see some 2.4% increases. So it's a general increase across board for petrol and diesel at the local pumps in the first pricing window. However, price of liquefied petroleum gas LPG is expected to remain unchanged, and the dynamics COPEC attributes to the depreciation of the local currency, the cedi, against the major trading currencies. Meanwhile, Institute of Energy Security IES has also projected prices of diesel and liquefied petroleum gas are expected to fall marginally in the first 2 weeks of July, and this IES also attributed to the marginal decrease in the various changes in the price of commodities on the international fuel markets, which will reflect positively on the local market. So we'll keep monitoring the market to see whose projection falls in place. The IES is predicting some marginal drops in there, and then we have COPEC also projecting some increases, 2.6% for fuel and diesel, 2.4%, to monitor the market and give you updates later on in our subsequent bulletins. But remember, you can log on to 3news.com. We have more business updates there when you log on. Thank you for your time. My name is Nana Ikuya Mensah Brampa. That's it for Business Daily this afternoon. Enjoy.